There are so many beautiful modern coins to collect, produced by so many amazing mints throughout the world, and a lot of those come across my desk, for which I am very grateful. But what happens if you want something a little bit more historical? Today we're going to talk about and look at two icons, one British and one American. On the British side of the pond is my favourite, the British gold sovereign. And on the American side of the pond is going to be the Morgan dollar. And we'll take a few of those and have a chat about Morgans. The modern sovereign, being produced pretty much every year, apart from a few, from 1817 onwards, weighs 0.2355 of an ounce, so just under a quarter of an ounce of fine gold in every glorious one. And we're looking here at the first of the modern sovereigns. I thought it'd be a nice place to focus, not something you usually see on my channel in a raw form, at least so many of them. 1817, quite a large mintage, but of course a lot of these coins were used heavily, worn down, melted, and the raw mint at that time pulled them all out and kept putting new sovereigns in their place when there was a tiny bit of wear to make sure they were the fullest possible gold weight. So the numbers of survivors are pretty low. There's a reasonable number of the 1817 ones around, although very few of them are in the beautiful condition of this particular one. And it's a great historical coin. You saw that in 2017 they issued the same design at the back with the garter, and that coin scored a massive hit for the raw mint. Skip forward to 1818, the second year, and fewer coins were produced. Even though 2,347,000 coins existed, these are pretty thin on the ground. And actually an 1818 sovereign is generally worth twice the value of an 1817 sovereign in the market. Most of the ones that are around are very, very worn, and collectors really appreciate the 1818 coin. And this particular one is in lovely condition, and it's a variety of 1818 sovereigns. It's an ascending colon variety, and that brings us on to one of the things that people love about sovereigns. There are so many different varieties. There are overdates, there are letters that are the wrong way round, there are there's a lot for the collector to focus on, and that's been one of the great and perennial attractions of the sovereign for historically a lot of UK collectors, and now I think a lot of world coin collectors. It's one of those series that's gone on for so long that people have collections comprised of nothing but gold sovereigns and hunt for particular years. And I must say, I think it's one of those coins that once you're bitten, there's no going back, and it has really something for everybody. Of course, what came after 1818 is the year 1819, and that is a very interesting and much more difficult year, really. You can see here in the Marsh Bible of gold sovereigns, you can see 1819 had a mintage of 3,574 coins, of which only an absolute handful are known in the present day. One was recently auctioned for £100,000. So unfortunately 1819 is therefore missing and absent from the small collection of pre-Victorian sovereigns that I'm showing you here today. And 1820 I think seems to be the most common year, although it had a lower mintage of just over 2 million. 1820 is maybe a third again, sometimes cheaper than the 1817. So if you're after your first one of these sovereigns, the 1820 is the most accessible, followed by 1817, followed by 1818. All of these ones are in beautiful condition and great examples. I particularly like the pre-Victorian sovereigns. I think because Victoria was on the reign so long, as is Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, I think the ones that have king heads on are in a way a little bit more interesting as coins, because the king heads were around, the early ones particularly, around for so few years, although George III did have a pretty good innings. I particularly like George IV and William IV coins, and I tend to focus on those for my particular collection. But these George III coins are loved in a way by everyone as well, but finding good examples is really, really tough. I'm wondering how many sovereign collectors also have a stash of Morgan dollars somewhere in their collection, and I'm wondering how many Morgan collectors have the odd sovereign, because these coins really do have quite a lot in common. They are both series that go on for a long period of time. They're both series that have classic designs that have stayed constant or similar over a period of time. And so let's take a look at the Morgan dollar. The Morgan dollar is interesting. 1878, the first Morgan was minted, and the last one was minted in 1921, with a bit of a gap between 1904 and 1921. The design has stayed exactly the same throughout the whole progression of dates. The only thing that changes is the mint mark, and you'll find them with no mint mark for the Philadelphia Mint, the O mint mark for New Orleans, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, and the most highly sought after ones have the CC mint mark, like this one from Carson City in Nevada. And a lot of people collect and hunt out these Carson City mint marks, both on silver like this Morgan, but also on gold produced particularly at the Carson City Mint. Just like sovereigns, many Morgans are pretty common. There are rarities, of course, but the highest mintage of a Morgan dollar was around over 44 million coins produced in 1921. Even in the early part of the run, there were commonly 18, 19 and 20 million coins produced. And there are tens of thousands of these coins that have been graded by the grading companies. And condition seems to be everything. So at the highest level, when there are only a few in very good condition, not bag marked in any way, because they all came in these great big bags, so a lot of them suffered immensely from being jostled against one another. So some of those very good condition coins are worth great big multiples of the condition of not so good versions of the Morgan dollar. Very highly collected. A lot of people love the Morgan dollar, although to some extent it's a little bit of a Marmite coin. You either love it or you hate it. But the people who love it go absolutely mad about these coins. Some of the ones that I've got here have been cleaned and polished, like this one. Not great. Others did okay in this particular submission of Morgan's to NGC. But I'm really just using it as an illustration to talk about the Morgan. The coins people go after, if they possibly can, are the ones marked PL, the proof-like coins, or the proof Morgan dollars. They command the big money, as well as the standard dates in very high grades. The Morgan in the Morgan dollar was a guy called George Morgan. And that's another interesting link between the Royal Mint and the US Mint and the Morgan dollar, because George Morgan was an Englishman who was known or worked for the Royal Mint, who was recruited and then came over to work for the US Mint as an assistant engraver, working under William Barber, the chief engraver. And he set to work producing the first patterns for the Morgan dollar. He wanted to use a woman who was a real American woman on the design of the Morgan dollar. And a woman called Anna Wilness Williams was chosen to be the face of the new coin, and she had a number of sittings with him and allowed him to produce the beautiful engraving that's used as the obverse of the Morgan dollar. In the early 1960s, there was a rush to exchange USA silver certificate notes for silver dollars, Morgan dollars for the most part, and that was outlawed in 1964, by which time millions of dollars, silver dollars, had been exchanged for notes, some even being carted off in wheelbarrows full of silver dollars. CC mint mark silver dollars from Carson City were generally lower in mintage figures than the other mints, and they had hoards and bags of these coins they didn't really know quite what to do with. In 1970, legislation was passed to allow the General Services Administration, the GSA, to work out a way of disposing of these coins that was equitable, and they're some of the more interesting kind of Morgans and historical kind of artifacts that come from that GSA hoard at that time. The sales of these coins raised $107 million between 1972 and 1980, and you can still buy these particular coins packaged in their GSA package, either opened or unopened. There's a whole market in these coins. I haven't had any across my desk, particularly over here in England, but I've seen pictures of them over in America. So what do you guys think of the comparison between the sovereign and the Morgan dollar? Is it a fair comparison? Which one do you prefer? Are you a Morgan collector? Are you a sovereign collector? Do you despise both of them and just collect something different or older or newer? If you're a Morgan collector, would you add sovereigns to your collection? If you're a sovereign collector, would you go and learn a little bit about the Morgan dollar? Be interesting to know what you guys think of the connection, I guess, between these two fabulous and iconic coins. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more videos like this, then let me know. I'm often happy to try and meet requests that come in. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. I'm trying to get the channel up towards 15,000 subscribers sometime soon.